Naomi screamed, a sound so sharp it cut through the hum of the quiet suburb. Let me go. Mom. Andre. Andre Thomas dropped the wrench he was using in the garage. It clattered against the concrete as he sprinted outside. The midday sun blinded him for half a second, but what he saw made every muscle in his body tense. Two men stood on his mother's front lawn. Both wore dark tactical vests with HOA enforcement printed in bold yellow letters. One of them, thick-armed and cocky, had his little sister Naomi by the wrist. She was only 15, scared, struggling, crying. Andre's voice thundered through the air. Let her go. Right now. The men froze for a beat, startled by the force in his tone. And that's where we'll rewind. Because to understand why two grown men thought they could manhandle a teenage girl in broad daylight, you need to know how Silverwood Heights lost its soul and how one woman's hunger for control lit the fuse. Silverwood Heights. A picture-perfect neighborhood. Trimmed lawns, smiling faces, and driveways lined with SUVs that gleamed under the morning sun. For years it had been peaceful. People waved, kids biked down the cul-de-sac, porch lights twinkled at night like a constellation of calm. Then Eleanor Price showed up. She wasn't a criminal, not at first glance. She was a middle-aged woman with silver blonde hair, pearls, and a voice so sweet it could rot your teeth. Within 6 months of moving in, she'd called for a Homeowners Association reformation, a new system, she said, to maintain order and value. Most people didn't care. They signed her forms without reading. The few who didn't, she handled them. Rules multiplied overnight. Trash bins visible longer than 10 minutes? Fine. Mailbox paint slightly faded? Fine. Grass higher than 2.5 inches? Another fine. Then came the enforcement division. Two men, Kyle and Tim, who strutted around like soldiers on patrol. They weren't police. They weren't even licensed security. But they had radios, badges they printed themselves, and Eleanor's blessing. They'd show up unannounced, slap envelopes on doors, take photos of yards, and glare at anyone who asked questions. On the corner of Maple Crest Drive lived Cynthia Thomas, a retired schoolteacher, mother of two, gentle but firm. When the first letter came, mailbox color out of regulation, she chuckled. When the second came, lawn variance violation, she tossed it in the recycling. Cynthia didn't believe in paying bullies. She'd seen too many in 30 years of teaching. She even told Eleanor to her face during a community meeting, I didn't sign up for your little HOA and I'm not paying a dime. Eleanor's smile never reached her eyes. Well, she said softly, some lessons are learned the hard way. Weeks later, strange things began happening. Trash scattered across Cynthia's front yard, a dead patch of grass shaped like a footprint. Her mailbox smashed clean off its post one night. When she called the HOA office, Eleanor's assistant told her, if you just pay your dues, maybe these things wouldn't happen. Neighbors warned her to stay quiet. Eleanor plays dirty, whispered Mrs. Delgado next door. Just go along with it. But Cynthia wouldn't bend. She raised her children to stand for what's right, even when you stand alone. Then, after 18 months overseas, her son came home, Lieutenant Andre Thomas, U.S. Army, a disciplined man with a calm intensity and a protective heart. When he stepped off that plane, Naomi burst into tears. Cynthia hugged him so tight he thought she might never let go. For a few days, life was simple again. Family dinners, laughter, Naomi showing off her school projects. Cynthia didn't tell him about Eleanor. She didn't want his first week home stained by neighborhood nonsense. But peace has a way of cracking. One night, Andre noticed a silver SUV parked across the street. Two men inside. Windows tinted, engine idling. He stepped outside, crossed his arms, stared. The SUV drove off. Who are they? He asked his mother later. Cynthia hesitated. Probably just HOA people doing their little patrol. Patrol? He repeated. Since when does a homeowners association have patrols? She forced a laugh. Don't worry about it, honey. You've had enough battles. Andre nodded slowly, but the soldier in him didn't like unanswered questions. The next morning, sunlight poured through the garage door as Andre organized his old gear. Naomi played music inside. Cynthia was brewing coffee. Then came the scream. Mom! Andre! Help! He bolted. Outside, two men stood in front of the house, Kyle and Tim. Kyle had Naomi by the arm. Tim was waving a clipboard. Sir, step back, Tim barked. This property is under HOA enforcement action. Andre's boots crunched the gravel. You're touching my sister. She's obstructing collection, Kyle snapped. Your family owes $900 in unpaid HOA fees. Andre's eyes darkened. You've got 10 seconds to let her go. She's coming with us until your mother signs the compliance agreement, Tim said. Andre took another step. Let her go. Right now. Kyle sneered. What are you going to do, soldier boy? Wrong words. Andre moved in a blur, training taking over. He seized Kyle's wrist, twisted, and drove his knee into the man's midsection. Kyle hit the grass hard, gasping. Tim lunged forward, baton raised. Andre sidestepped, hooked his arms, and sent him tumbling into the flower bed. Naomi stumbled back into Cynthia's arms, sobbing. Cynthia shouted, "Enough! Stop!" But the fight was already over. Andre stood over the two men, breathing steady. Stay down, he said quietly, before you embarrass yourselves further. Neighbors appeared on porches. Phones came up. Cameras rolled. Mrs. Delgado whispered, "It's about time someone stood up to them." Andre pulled his phone from his pocket. Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Thomas. I've got 2 suspects detained for assaulting a minor. Within minutes, the wail of sirens filled Silverwood Heights. Deputies cuffed the 2 enforcers, still in their fake vests. Then came Eleanor Price, marching up the street like she owned it. Lieutenant Thomas, she said sharply, you've just assaulted HOA officers. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Andre looked at her with the calm of a man who'd seen worse. Ma'am, they assaulted a 15-year-old girl. You'll be hearing from the sheriff. Eleanor's face reddened. You think your rank means anything here? No, he said. But the law does. Deputy Harris, an old friend from Andre's service days, stepped forward. Good to see you back, Lieutenant. We'll take it from here. As the deputies questioned everyone, the truth spilled out. Naomi's testimony, Cynthia's stack of threatening letters, neighbors' videos and stories of intimidation. The wall Eleanor had built with fear began to crumble brick by brick. Under pressure, Kyle cracked first. He confessed Eleanor had been paying them personally from HOA maintenance funds to teach people a lesson. Tim confirmed it. They even had text messages. Eleanor tried to lawyer up, but evidence poured in from all directions. Forged invoices, hidden accounts, falsified signatures on property transfers. She'd been flipping homes of those she forced out, pocketing hundreds of thousands in profit. A week later, county investigators raided her home. What they found filled 3 boxes: documents, payment logs, and recordings of her ordering strict compliance visits. The headline hit local news like wildfire. HOA president arrested for fraud, extortion, and harassment. The once untouchable queen of Silverwood Heights now wore handcuffs. In court, residents packed the gallery. When the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, a wave of quiet relief swept the room. Her sentence, 7 years in state prison, restitution to every homeowner, and a lifetime ban from any HOA leadership position. Eleanor's empire of control dissolved overnight. The enforcement team disbanded, and Silverwood Heights finally exhaled. Weeks later, the air felt different. Kids played again. Neighbors smiled for real. On a calm evening, Andre sat on the porch with Cynthia. Naomi was taking photos of the sunset, safe, laughing again. Cynthia sipped her lemonade. You didn't have to get involved, you know. Andre smiled faintly. Mom, I didn't fight for freedom overseas just to ignore it here. She nodded, eyes glistening. Your father would have been proud. He looked down the street where the last of Eleanor's for sale signs was being taken down. Looks like Silverwood's finally free, he said. Power without compassion is just tyranny in disguise. Eleanor Price built her rule on fear, but fear crumbles the moment courage steps outside. Never mistake quiet for weakness, because sometimes the calmest houses hide the fiercest defenders. If you believe justice still matters, hit that like button, share this story, and tell us where you're watching from. Because here at Voices Unchained, we don't just tell stories. We remind the world that truth always, always finds its voice.